and I've pledged to reduce by 10% our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So in Boss Watch, we are not only highlighting how much bosses break the law, that's kind of like the primary motivator. We do that to try to put it in perspective about just how, how in many cases employers are like criminal syndicates almost. But also what it does, what Boss Watch does, is it highlights the important role that government agencies play in protecting the rights and the property of employees, of workers. Okay, the Department of Labor, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, the Wage and Hour Division, the Equal Employment and Opportunity Commission, the all of these agencies, very, very important. And they're all underfunded. They have all been basically flat funded, and in some cases actually had their funding cut over the last 10 years. And
Right.
And so that's very, very bad.
Yeah, the more an agency actually helps regular people, the more likely it is that they're underfunded and subject to all sorts of sabotage, basically.
Exactly.
And so that's something that is a big factor here.
And also, the underfunding of them and the understaffing as well. Here's something that the American Federation of Government Employees put out last week during the Republican presidential debates, and we're going to play a clip about this subject here in just a second. In 1945, the federal government employed 2.5% of the population. 1 in 50 people who worked for the federal government. Today, it is less than 1%. 0.6% of the population works for the federal government. Okay, so people, and that actually surprised me. If you had asked me how much people work for, I would have guessed it was probably the same as 1945. People are always talking about, oh, the government's so much bigger. Well, in fact, actually, it is literally smaller when you talk about it in proportion to the population. But so I say all that to say, listen to what this Republican presidential candidate, who will not be president, obviously, Asa Hutchinson, says, but it is indicative of a Republican position. Let's listen to what Asa Hutchinson said about the federal government.
And I made sure that we shrunk the size of government. We have 14% fewer state employees in Arkansas after I left government than when I took over as governor 8 years ago. I tell that because that's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need somebody who can actually constrain the growth of the federal government, that can actually reduce the size, and I've pledged to reduce by 10% our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state.
So there we go. He wants, and so when they say that, what we were just talking about, the agencies that are keeping an eye on the bosses, that are protecting workers, that are protecting the community from bosses who want to pollute their community, that's who he wants to cut. Those are the budgets that he wants to cut. He specifically said, oh no, we're going to set defense spending aside and continue to increase that. But we're going to cut any agency that actually protects people. We're going to cut it by 10% is what he wants to do.
It's a lot of people's jobs and livelihoods.
That's a lot of people's jobs and livelihoods, and it's a lot of bosses who are going to get away with stealing from their employees, murdering their employees, and polluting their communities. That's what it means to cut government. That's what that means. And that's what they're about, because that's who his donors are. That's who funds the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, by and large. Because remember, the federal government has, most of these agencies have been flat funded over the last 10 years, okay? It hasn't only been Republicans in office the last 10 years. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.